This is Catherine Dubberly, the Answer Lady, having a ball on my Kiss loom, making double comfort slippers. You can make some too. Let's get going. Let's make some nice double thick, warm slipper boots on the Kiss loom. This is what they'll look like when finished, and I'm going to suggest that you do treat the sole for non-slip qualities so that they're safer. They're super, super warm. And technically speaking, you could make these in any yarn in any size. I chose this. It's what we call in the U.S. a number 4 or worsted weight yarn would have been our old word, also known as medium weight yarn. It may be easier to tell you the gauge, so if you're in another country, you can figure out what that means to you. I got 4 stitches, 6 rows per inch. 4 inches equals 10 centimeters. So if you're in a country where you do this by 10 centimeter gauge swatches, that would be 16 stitches per 10 centimeters and 24 rows per 10 centimeters. I suggest you do use this yarn or even a thicker yarn, or this weight of yarn. It doesn't have to be this specific one, because although you could technically do this with anything, the point of it is thickness and extra warmth. So doing it in a real fine gauge seems to me to defeat its purpose. I used this loom, and you'll see me doing it. You could certainly reproduce something awfully similar on any of the Kiss looms, particularly, this is a small gauge, the regular gauge. But this is a small gauge without any washers, which I chose in order to knit this yarn a little bit more tightly than I would if knitting a sweater. I would say this is on the heavy end of the number 4 spectrum. Now I'm going to address the numbers that you need for this pattern as a two-way option. What you need is a 1/2 inch longer than the relaxed foot measurement and a 1/2 inch bigger in circumference than the relaxed foot measurement. And you may take your gauge numbers from the yarn that you choose on the loom that you choose and multiply them out and figure out what that is, or you can refer to one of the many, many charts in my book, Socks of All Sorts for Knitting Looms, where the math is already done for you. And I'll mention as we go ways to do that. Now, make sure you understand the contrast between this sock shape and regular socks. It is the same shape, but with regular socks, we use what's called negative ease. So our relaxed foot measurement in circumference, we actually use a 1/2 inch smaller than that to fit the sock. And in length, we do not go any longer than the actual foot. The reason we need the extra is because having this 2 layers and then wearing them over winter socks, because after all, this is a winter garment, you do need the extra space. These are sized more similarly to shoes than to normal socks. So make sure that if you're all accustomed to making socks and you know for sure that you want 32 stitches for your socks, you don't just transfer that and make it a 32 stitch boot, because it's not going to work. You're going to need a little bit more room than that. These weigh in on my postal scale at about 5 ounces for the pair. This is a pair that would fit a size 6.5 foot. So that took not all of 2 skeins, but 2 skeins of this, which is 3.5 ounces per skein. Considering that I have a lot left over, I think quite a lot of sizes can be made out of 2 skeins. But the extra large sizes, it would be very smart to have a 3rd skein on hand. I'm thinking that the numbers that I give you in terms of ease, 1/2 inch extra in length and circumference, will work okay for number 5 yarns as well as for number 4 yarns. If you decide to go so bulky as a number 6, I think you are most likely going to need a greater degree of ease. If you decide to go smaller, say to a number 2 or a number 1 yarn, I don't even recommend it, as I've mentioned, but I think you'll only need a 1/4 inch of ease. But those are guesses. I have not made them. They're educated guesses. I've only made several pair in number 4 yarn, which to me seems just about perfect.